A lot of the interest of this ceiling comes from the different levels and the different layers that kind of stack and build upon one another. But the first thing we need to do is get this major beam bottom piece put on. Then we're going to put the panel sections in here, and then the last part of it is the minor beams sit on top of those panel sections. Now, unfortunately, it's a little bit longer than 16 feet back and forth across here, so we're going to have to put a small splice on this end. But for now, we're going to put this big piece in. Now, we've cut a hole where our center ceiling fixture is going to be. Ready, John? It's really important that we keep these lined up on the sides exactly. I'm going to tack it real quick. Then just check with a square. Now that we've got this major beam piece up, we're ready to start putting panel sections in place. Frame and panel construction is a trim detail that we use all the time in the houses that we build. In this project, we're creating these frames and panels to put up on the ceiling. Now, it's really a simple technique. Basically, you put together a frame with your pieces. We use pocket screws to put them together. Then you staple a piece of plywood on the back of the frame. Then you fit moldings inside the frame to create these details. Now there's all different types of moldings that you can fit in here to get lots of different looks. This is a pretty standard one that I really like. We use it for a lot of different things. Now, there are a couple things that can help you. These long pieces called the rails, you want to make sure you get them both cut exactly the same length. The cross members are called the stiles. Again, it's really important to cut them exactly the same length, because if they're cut exactly the same length, then all my pieces of molding that go up and down can be cut exactly the same length. So what I recommend is use a miter saw that's got a stop on it where you can really get accurate cuts. You really need to be able to cut within a 32nd of an inch. For instance, on this section right here, these stile pieces, it was really important to cut them exactly the same length, because if each one of those was the same, then each one of these pieces of molding would be exactly the same. I can set a stop and cut all those pieces repetitively. And if I'm careful how I locate this middle stile, then these pieces are going to be the same length too. Now, another thing, when you're cutting your moldings, you want to make sure that you, if anything, get them just a tiny bit tight. And what I mean by that is just let it drag a little bit when it goes in, because I can do adjustments to a piece that's too tight, but if it's too loose, there's nothing I can do but just go get a caulking gun. For instance, in this joint, if this piece is a little bit tight and didn't want to quite go in, I could take my block plane and block plane off of the back of the piece of molding that was going up against it, and that would let that piece of molding come back in and go over. It's almost like shortening the piece. The other thing that I do is I'll take my block plane, I will under bevel the joints just a little bit so that I'm kind of wedging the pieces in place. Now, when I do that, I don't touch the face, I just under bevel. Now, don't make the mistake of trying to set your miter saw on an angle and cutting it a little bit of an angle, because that actually changes the angle that you're cutting. You want to have your miter saw set square and then just under bevel using a block plane, or you can even do it with a utility knife. So there's so many different things that you can do using frame and panel construction. Now, this is the panel section that we're putting in the ceiling, on our panel ceiling, but you can also use this for a detail for a mantle. We do pilasters beside doors, and of course wainscot. There's just so many things you can do by using this simple technique and just changing out the moldings. This is one of my favorite things that we use all the time on the houses that we build. We've spaced 2 inches off of our major beams on each end, put a pencil mark up there, and we've taken some measurements, and I know that if I butt right against this block, I'm going to be where I need to be. John's going to need to space a little bit. We try to be careful and leave ourselves a little bit of room. Now, the other thing that we've done is we've marked where our ceiling joists are so we know where we can nail this up. So, John, you ready to put it up?
Yep.
Well, I'm looking pretty good. How about you? We've got our first panel section in place. Now, it was really important to us to get all the spacing around it right so that when we start adding our other layers of molding, will have the proper reveal all the way around. We also marked our joists so we knew where to nail into, and from this point on, each layer of molding is going to lock everything in place. Got lots of layers of molding, but it all has to start by getting these panels in the right spot. So we're going to move over now and put the other panel in, then we'll be ready to put this minor beam in.